Excellent. So why don't we get started? Let me do a quick welcome to those who are watching us from near and far. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is James Chang. I am director of the Duck Career Network here at the University of Oregon Alumni Association, and I'm happy to be broadcasting from the Ford Alumni Center here on the U of O campus. We have speakers from near and far, and I'm really excited to be able to introduce them in just a moment. But before I do, I want to once again welcome you on behalf of the U of O Alumni Association. Our office is here to maintain and keep our maintain relationships and keep our alumni engaged in whatever means they would like to. Obviously, there are ways that you can do so through sports and spirits activities. There are ways you can be involved in local chapters. But with the Duck Career Network, our focus is to support your career success by ensuring that there's a strong network of alums who can help one another. As we say, ducks helping ducks for career success. We couldn't do this without the Alumni Association members, so a huge shout out to all of you who have basically committed to stay with the U of O well beyond graduation, to say that you're in our game to make the U of O stronger, and thank you for being our champions and cheerleaders, ambassadors and advocates for all that the U of O does. So with me are two colleagues. One is next to me, one is up in Portland. So let me ask Camille to start by introducing herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Camille Ogden, and I'm the program coordinator for the Duck Career Network. I'm also a Duck alum, so yeah.
Excellent. And so Camille will be here with me throughout the program, but a particular feature of this webinar is that as you have questions, be sure to use the, I believe there's two options, but I think you can use the chat feature where you can type in some questions that you have, and Camille will be monitoring those questions so that towards the end of the program, we'll be able to field some questions from audience members and have our panelists answer those. So thank you so much, Camille. Linda, could you please introduce yourself?
I'm happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Linda Severo, and I'm a proud 89 Duck. And currently, I am the program director for Alumni Career Services, which is housed up here in Portland, but I served people all the way from Brazil to Singapore. I had a great experience in my 4 years at the U of O. You're going to hear a little bit of street noise. White Stag is a very busy place, but I know that you all had great experiences at U of O, and I know those are going to serve you well as you're out there looking for jobs. I also had the opportunity to serve on the alumni board for 3 years, and have been doing alumni career services since 2008. Prior to that, I did law firm marketing for 18 years in the Portland market, and it's fun to use some of those marketing skills as I help other people with their own personal branding and identifying those opportunities that they're hoping to find as they're out there in the job search process.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Linda. So before I have the alums who are in various markets across the country introduce themselves, I specifically want to thank those of you who are currently in your final weeks of senior year. We are so excited for your upcoming graduation, and so again, the program, this program in particular, is specifically to support upcoming graduates to help you have the smoothest, most successful transition from college to career possible. And that's really what this whole next 40 or 50 minutes is all about. In addition, I want to extend a welcome to those of you who graduated within the last 4 years. We all know that the first year out of school is typically a absolute transition, but frankly, years 2, 3, and 4 can be just as much of a transition as you try to figure out what you want, what you need, what you like and what you don't like, and as you continue the career exploration process through just hands-on work. So we're thrilled to have both upcoming grads as well as recent grads on this program. So with that, let me start the introduction of our alumni who are literally from coast to coast. So with this introduction, if you could please talk about where you are, what you currently do, but also as part of your introduction, maybe you can talk about your fondest memory of the U of O. whether it's an activity that you gained a lot from, or just something that was very, very meaningful for you. So with that, let's start with Abby.
Hey everyone, my name is Abby Mulligan. I'm a recent grad, so I graduated in June 2015. I am currently working as an account coordinator in San Francisco at an experiential marketing agency called Grow Marketing. And my highlight of the U of O was, I would probably have to say it's a little more general and broad. I was involved in multiple student organizations across various departments at the university, and so a lot of my fondest memories are actually being heavily involved with those student groups and putting on events and speaking opportunities and networking opportunities for students. So that is very broad, but there's a lot to cover there, and I'm sure we'll get into it later.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Abby. Mark, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Mark Pilkington, and I'm on from Portland, Oregon today, but I was born and raised in Eugene, graduated from the University of Oregon in '79 in the School of Journalism. Shortly after graduation, I joined Nike in 1980 and was there for 35 years, and then recently retired. I had a variety of positions at Nike, but I started their film and video department. I have a lot of fond memories of my time at the University of Oregon. I guess what I'll say is that I enjoyed producing the Dick Harder Show. He was the head coach in the University of Oregon basketball program while I was going to school, and I was also working my way through college in local television. So, spending time at Mac Court and seeing Ronnie Lee and Greg Ballard and some of those great kamikaze teams was one of the highlights that I had. So, because I'm a sports guy, and if you didn't see a game in Mac Court, it's too bad, because it was a wonderful venue for basketball. But now we have Matt Arena, and it's also a great venue.
Excellent. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, Mark. And last but not least, Michael, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Thompson. I graduated from the University of Oregon in 2007, and I moved out to Washington, D.C. that summer to attend law school here in D.C. So I've been out in D.C. for about 9 years. I'm currently the president of the National Capital Chapter of the Alumni Association. We just call it the D.C. Ducks. And I guess fond memory of the University of Oregon, I was a member of the Oregon Marching Band for my 5 years on campus. And so just traveling to away games or basketball games, enjoying Mac Court as well, all the activity that surrounded representing the University of Oregon as part of the athletic department was pretty cool.
Excellent. Thank you. So let me start with some of the prepared questions we have before we go to any questions from the audience. So this particular question is, as you reflect on your own college to career transition, or if you like, as you've observed recent graduates go from college to career, what are some of the things that you would say made the transition smoother or more effective? So again, as you reflect on your own experience or what you observe other people doing through the transition, what should some of our audience members know or think or do to hopefully make this transition smoother? So Abby, why don't we start with you, since I think your transition was the most recent among our esteemed guests.
Definitely. I think that there's a lot of pressure coming out of college to find, your dream job, and there's a high caliber that a lot of us hold ourselves to find the perfect job that has the right amount of pay, the right activities that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, and provides the lifestyle that you want, whether that's traveling all over the world or that's working out of or not in an office from 9 to 5. And I think one of my biggest learnings to making my transition easier, going from being on campus and moving from class to class and being able to have some free time in between my hours to a 9 to 5 job in an office, has really been to keep an open mind and be thankful for the opportunities you have in whatever setting you're in. And so I thankfully was lucky to be working at an agency that I'd been following for 4 years. So for me, Grow is kind of my dream agency. And it's working out in my favor, but I do have a few of my fellow classmates who have transitioned from one job that they received directly out of college, started there in the summer, and then decided that it wasn't the right fit. And I think that the biggest learning is keeping an open mind and really taking the time to see what you like and what you don't. But that also means trying out new things and unfamiliar positions or unfamiliar industries that you don't necessarily see yourself in originally. I went to school for PR and I minored in business administration and digital arts, and now I'm working at an experiential marketing agency. So it's very different from the PR realm, but I kept an open mind with it, and I love what I do, and so I think that that's kind of my number one.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Abby. Why don't we go to the other coast? So, Michael, can you share your observations of your own transition or that of what you've seen of recent grads who, in particular, have gone from Oregon to DC?
Sure, yeah. I think that it's really helpful. The Alumni Association is really helpful. It's an immediate network as soon as you move from another city. Moving across the country or to another large urban area or even small urban area outside of the Pac-12 geographic footprint is, it can be tough. You can be far away from family and friends, far away from your support. But one thing that helped me a lot actually was the Alumni Association. I had no idea, honestly, that there were even chapters out here when I moved out here, but somebody saw me with an Oregon shirt and said, come to the watch party in a couple weeks for the first game of the season, and I've been part of the Alumni Association ever since. And via that group, I was able to get my first internship when I was in law school. One of the other members of the Alumni Association was working at an agency that I ended up interning at, and he put a good word in for me with the boss. And then now moving forward and being on the other side of that, we get emails quite a bit from current students or recent graduates who are moving to Washington, D.C. And I think those are great. They're really helpful for us to be able to give back to the university. It's a weird transition to go from a somebody who's like trying to build a network, to somebody that is being sought out for a network. But I don't think you ever really are in one camp or the other. You're kind of always on that continuum. But for me, it's just been cool to be able to give back and help people that are coming out to DC. And so I would encourage everybody to look up your local alumni chapter and get involved, whether that is going to watch parties or volunteering or showing up to various events, and then also to use the networking angle as well. And feel free to send an email to the leaders of the chapter for the city that you're moving to, and ask them to help hook you up with somebody that is doing something similar to what you want to do. With those emails, I would say that it's helpful to include a resume and include some information about what it is that you're looking for. If I get an email that just says, my name is Michael Thompson and I'm graduating from the University of Oregon and moving to Washington, D.C. and I need a job, I can't help that person as easily as if I get a more detailed message, because then I can give that information to the right person that I know has an open job or works in the right career field or has a similar story, whatever sort of thing I can do to help kind of match them up. So, but do take advantage of that. Alumni, the connection to the University of Oregon is very strong, and I think it gets stronger the farther away you move from the university. So please, if you are coming to DC or if you're going to anywhere else, look up the local alumni, whether it's an official chapter or via LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, and reach out to them. And that connection, the connection of being a duck, is enough to begin that relationship.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael. Mark, advice from you from your own transition or those of individuals you've seen around you from college to career?
Well, I thought all of that was very good advice, so I'll try not to repeat what we've heard. I would say that in terms of kind of understanding yourself and your own story, and it's okay to practice, kind of your, what I guess sometimes is referred to as an elevator pitch, but understanding and being able to articulate who you are, what your story is, what your niche is, what your passion is. And if you haven't figured that out yet, that's okay too. So be curious about the world, ask a lot of questions, and whoever you meet, try to get to understand what makes them unique and what their story is. Because I think the more people that you can meet and get to know, you never know how that may end up influencing you in your life down the road. And absolutely, if you're traveling back to your hometown or wherever you find yourself post-graduation, I think that Michael's comments about coordinating with the local Duck chapter or working through the national UOAA staff to help you kind of find local Ducks, that's a good way to get started. And networking is a huge opportunity, even if you're not that anxious to jump right into your first career, your first job. It's good to stay connected to the university and all of your peers.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. Linda, I'd like to pull you into the conversation for a moment, because since you have a chance to see so many individuals, whether they're 1 or 2 weeks out of school, 1 or 2 weeks beyond graduation, or even 1 or 2 or more years beyond graduation. So, just maybe 1 or 2 observations from your perspective of what college, newly minted college grads should be doing or thinking about in order to improve that transition process.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Well, I really appreciate what the panelists said. They're right on. So I hope people are taking really good notes and remembering what they're saying, because I think the advice that they're giving is spot on, and that's where I see the most success for people that are coming here. For one, a lot of people don't realize that they have Alumni Career Services available to them for a full year from graduation, and then we can continue to support them throughout their whole career. So people are always surprised. They're like, wow, I didn't even know that I had that. So please utilize us, because we're here for you and we want you to be successful as well. The second thing is people are so surprised at how often Ducks want to help Ducks. So doing those informational interviews, and I appreciate what Michael said, to be really specific about what you want, to write a clear, concise message about what you're interested in. We know that things can change, but at least it helps direct people. If they're not the right person, maybe somebody else is, but to be really clear and concise, respecting their time, 15, 20 minutes. And so much of people are always looking for jobs online, and they realize people really want to meet with me, they'll do that. And I'm like, yeah, try. And then they come back to me, and we have a whole blog series about how people have found their jobs by doing these informational interviews. And those are really helping Ducks. So don't be afraid to do that.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. So I've got a series of questions for specific alumni, and so let me go through those. And I will reiterate that for those of you who are watching, if you would like to submit a question that we can ask specific speakers or the entire panel of speakers, do click on that chat tab that's on your webinar screen and just type in the questions, and Camille will keep track of those and ask those towards the end. So the next question I'd like to ask specifically of Abby, who many of you may remember, she's in the San Francisco area and involved in the Bay Area Ducks chapter. So can you tell us a little bit more about the activities and programs that the Bay Area Ducks does in particular, but also what many other chapters do? Because again, the community of Ducks can be a resource not only professionally, as we're talking about, but also personally. Most people, when they think of their time at U of O, it's not only class projects that they think about, or homework, or classrooms, but it's also that social. So how can chapters be a social support network for our recent grads, newly minted grads? Abby.
Completely. So, this all goes back to Michael's previous point about when you're moving to a new city, the folks that you are closest to and you have that automatic connection to is fellow Ducks. And luckily, San Francisco is a hotbed for them. There are quite a few Ducks here in the area, and so in particular with this Bay Area chapter, we host watch parties like many other chapters across the country do, usually mostly focused around football season here in the Bay Area, well, specifically in San Francisco. And so if any of you are familiar with the Bay Area, it's quite large. So we have our East Bay, South Bay, North Bay, and then San Francisco is just the city. And so a lot of our events happen in the city because it's the middle ground to each of the connecting areas of the Bay Area. So we have our watch parties yearly. We also have a signature event. This year it was held at the Pac-12 studio offices, which was amazing. And then we also have networking opportunities that we partner with for the Alumni Association. So Duck Biz lunches, or when the Student Alumni Association comes into town, we try and help out facilitate certain events that are appropriate, so networking lunches or happy hours and some outings. But another thing that I want to touch on, while I was a current student at the University of Oregon, my best connections were actually through connecting with alumni through the Alumni Association to essentially have informational interviews, connect with them on LinkedIn professionally to see how they enjoy the city and what they do in the certain or specific industry that they're in. And so our chapter members are always happy to meet with students. I actually meet quite a few of them via LinkedIn when they're in town and I have a free day to go out for lunch. I will take a coffee break with them and talk to them about transitioning out of college lifestyle into the workforce. So again, just really utilize your alumni network. I know it's a little nerve-wracking and scary to be reaching out to an alumni that you don't know, but there is something that holds true to fellow Ducks helping other Ducks. And again, most of my connections are through other Duck alumni who are in my position, and I think that's something that is an automatic connection for those who just recently graduated or are about to graduate, is that every Duck that is now in the workforce was in your position at one point. And so they understand, you know, the trials and tribulations of being a recent grad and finding your way into the workforce, especially if you're in a new city, coming from Eugene, being in there for 4 years, or if you're venturing off to a city that you don't have any family members in. It's just a really great network, a really great opportunity to meet more people who could potentially connect you with another employer.
Excellent, Abby. In many ways, people are thinking about the whole notion of paying it forward, but for a lot of alums, it's really paying it back because alums help them, and they're happy to help those recent and new grads.
Yes, definitely.
So the next question I'd love to ask Mark. Mark, can you tell us about the different ways that alumni can get involved with fellow Ducks? And I pose this question to you because I know you are super, super involved as an alum. So if you have any advice on, you know, what recent and new grads can consider as they start moving from campus life to away from campus life.
Well, certainly as recent grads, there are a lot of opportunities through your career networking programs and events to stay involved, particularly if that's an important focus to you, and it seems to be for a lot of recent grads, unless they're fortunate enough to get something, you know, right out of school or upon graduation. We have a lot of U of O chapters around the world, many of them in the United States. I know Portland has a very active chapter, Seattle, the Bay Area, San Diego, the DC Ducks, don't want to forget about them, New York, and I'm sure that the UAA can provide the entire list of chapters. And then we have some markets that may not have an official chapter, but they have clubs. And so we have all kinds of events and networking opportunities through those local markets. They could be social events like watch parties, or I know in Portland we've been doing a lot of things that we call kind of Ducks Night Out, where you just get together. We have Science Night, where we are fortunate enough to get some of the U of O professors to come in and talk about a particular science subject and kind of a continuing education, but they make it fun because that's in one of our local microbreweries, and that's always fun. So those are just a few ways to get involved, and there's also volunteering. A lot of things that you can do to give back, like what we're doing today, and trying to help recent grads through career networking. But you can also work with the UOA staff to see if there's ways that you can volunteer in other capacities as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. And I know for you in particular, you've been very active and involved in our face-to-face networking events, giving our students and recent grads practice. I also know that you've done plenty of, more than your share of information interviews, I'm sure. And then last but not least, just like Linda, you've served on our national board of directors. And so for recent grads, some of these things may seem a little overwhelming, especially since you've just graduated, but once you get settled into your career and have a little bit more time and energy to give back to the U of O, there are those easy things to do, but also things that can be much more involved, and you can have a greater involvement and sort of have a hand in shaping the institution moving forward. So again, thank you so much, Mark. So for Michael, can you tell us a little bit more about some of those examples of I guess in your particular example for the DC Ducks, some of those great programs and resources that are available that ends up being I guess an avenue for our new grads to get plugged into. In particular, I think the DC Ducks chapter is very well known for your holiday parties, your president's reception, even doing away tailgates maybe up in Tennessee. But could you tell us a little bit more about some of these specific programs and how you think some recent grads can make the most of them?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for your praises of the DC Ducks. We are very active. We have a very strong alumni base out here. We're not enormous. We don't have anywhere near close, as you can imagine, the numbers in San Francisco or Portland or Eugene. But everyone out here is super passionate. And I think part of that is because we're so far away from Oregon, so we look for ways to manufacture that same feeling that we had when we were on campus, that same feeling we had when we were surrounded by all our buddies at school. So we do, we'll start at the beginning of the year. We have a happy hour right before football season starts, and that is coupled with our new grad socials. So we offer all new graduates a free drink to come out and hang out with us, and that's kind of your introduction to the DC Ducks. So anybody who's graduated in the last 5 years, I think, usually gets a special invitation to that, but it's open to the whole chapter. And then we run right into football season, where we have a watch party every week. We have a couple bars here in DC, and those are great events because you can develop a friendship in a kind of unforced way, because you're spending 4 hours every week for 12 weeks straight yelling at a television. And there's not much more that brings people together than that. So it's really actually pretty great, because you can really make some good connections. You can talk to people about their careers, about their story. For DC in particular, why did the person come to DC? How long have they been here? What tips and tricks and things can they talk about that they're enjoying about their time? So I think that's been really helpful and an easy way for people to get to know each other. We have done the away tailgates, as James mentioned. We had one in Virginia a couple years ago, Tennessee. Last year we were at Michigan State. This year a lot of us are going to be at Nebraska. Basically most of the more active Ducks that are outside, again, of that Pac-12 footprint, Chicago, New York, Boston, here, or people that live where there aren't chapters in Texas or Georgia or Pennsylvania or wherever, a lot of those people end up traveling to these away games because they're actually closer than any of the games in Eugene or anywhere else in the normal Pac-12 schedule. So we always end up getting together, and I have friends that are members of all of those chapters now, having been involved with the DC Ducks long enough. So that's cool. My network actually exists outside of DC just from going to those games. Then we have the signature event, which is the holiday party, which is great because we actually raise money there for a scholarship. And this is important for your new grads. If you have friends that are still in the University of Oregon, still in school, that are looking to come out to DC for the summer, we raise money for a scholarship where we give $1,000 to somebody who's coming out to DC, and hopefully that pays for part of their rent for 1 month or their plane ticket or whatever. So just try to help them out when they're out here. And then in the spring we do more service events and try to get people involved socially and outside of the drinking and the sports. Though we watch the spring game, we watch the basketball games. Depending on how far the men and women go in the postseason of baseball and softball, we might do a watch party for one of those. Then we have a family picnic in the summer. We have a reception for all the interns. We have a bunch of people who apply for that scholarship. Unfortunately, we can't award it to everyone, but all those people that come out, we buy them all dinner and get them all together, and that's a great way to meet some current students. And again, it's a nice bridging the gap. If you are an alumni who moves out to DC in September, well then come July when we're hosting that event, you're now a DC resident. You've been out here for a year, and you can now be giving back to some current students about what there is to do in DC and why you like it. And then we round it all up with the end of the year is our family picnic, which includes a send-off for all the students who are coming from this area and going back to DC. And that's another really great event because, at least for me, I really enjoy hearing these students, what they've been doing on campus, what they're looking forward to in their sophomore year or their junior year, or if they're freshmen, what they are, curious about. And then obviously I can't really answer many questions about what's going on at U of O, so I like to listen to those responses from the recent graduates or the current students about, the updates on campus, because it's been a while since I've spent much time there. So it's just really great to have this. We have a wide gamut of ages, we have a wide gamut of careers, and then we try to do lots of different events in order to keep people involved. And I guess for an event, the best advice I can give is just remember everyone there is somebody who attended the University of Oregon, whether it was for a semester or for 4 years or 5 years or whatever, or 8 years at a grad school, or however long, they may be from Eugene. I mean, you have a lot of connections with those people, so feel free to just walk right up to them and ask them some questions and start that dialogue, because again, everyone's really happy to meet other people from Oregon. Every time I see somebody in Ducks gear, I yell "Go Ducks" at them out here in DC, and then I usually forget when I touch down in Portland and I start yelling at people in the Portland airport, and everyone's like, okay, everyone's wearing duck gear. It's stupid. You should calm down. But it's great. It's great to see people in duck gear. It's great to see other ducks doing events and getting together. So we really like to help each other out. So feel free, if you're ever in an event, just walk up to somebody and start talking to them, ask them what their story is, and that's how you start getting to know people and building those relationships.
Excellent, Michael. And you sparked a couple of thoughts in my head. For a lot of our recent grads, you may not know exactly where you want to move. You might have that aunt in LA, that brother or sister that's in San Francisco, that cousin in Boston, and as you're trying to figure out where you want to go, think about the times you're visiting for family occasions, for weddings, for vacation, and during those times, look up the local chapter of the Ducks. See if they have an event, a networking event, a lunch, a speakers panel, and use that time to have some face-to-face time with alums. So, don't necessarily think that you have to be super strategic and career-oriented to send an email or to arrange a meeting, but, just go into their space, see what they do, and that might give you a sense of that social support network you might find while you're there. The other thing that I thought I would add is, Mark, you brought up the Portland Science Nights that occur in the Portland area where faculty are talking about their latest and greatest research and publications, and they do it in such an interesting way that 100-some people are now regular, attendees of these events. But I wanted to mention that that was started because there was one alum who joined the Portland chapter and said, well, sports aren't my thing, but I'm really curious what faculty are doing. And through her efforts, working with the chapter, working with those of us at the Alumni Association, that has spawned a series that is one of the biggest and most favorite activities in the Portland area, and is noted by many of the attendees. The people who show up are different from the ones from the watch party. So those people can also be different from the career-oriented programs that Linda and I host. So no matter what kind of a duck you are, whatever area of interest you have, you're not alone. There's a big community of ducks, and we need you to be part of it. And hopefully, by being part of us, you'll also see happening the things that you want to happen within the duck community. Great. So I've got one more question that will go around, and then I will pass it to Linda to share some specifics about those resources available for upcoming and new graduates. She'll also have some tips that she will share, and then we'll move on to the open questions from the audience. So with this next question that I'd love all of you to answer, we've talked a lot about networking, reaching out, making that first connection. But I think most of us will recognize it usually is easier said than done, because oftentimes we have that internal fear, or we frankly are just making any excuse not to do it. But I think hopefully people have heard from all of our speakers that alumni want to do it, so hopefully that should at least take the excuse away. But I'd love to get all of your impressions about how individuals can make that first impression. And maybe if it helps, maybe talk about some of the what not to do's. And one example I can share is that I have heard from some chapter people that students will send a blind carbon copy email to all 12 officers of a chapter to say, I'm coming to blank, can you help me? And we can point that out as not effective, right? But I'd love to get all of your sort of maybe one or two thoughts about how can students and recent graduates make that good first impression. So Abby, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I think the number one rule of thumb is to do your research and to really ground yourself in knowing just the basics of who you're reaching out to and who you're trying to network. And then also being really strategic about who you're networking with. Most of the time when students are about to graduate or they're recent grads and on the hunt for a job, there's this tendency to go about networking with folks blindly, and it definitely shows when during that initial outreach or even during the first meeting, the first in-person meeting or first phone conversation. So my suggestion would be to really hone in on those research skills and find out more about them. I'm not talking about finding them on Facebook or trying to get to know them on a more personal level. If you're trying to professionally reach out to them, I more so mean their job history. How did they climb that professional ladder? Where did they start? Did they have industry switches? Did they move from one city to another for a job, what it looks like to be a job opportunity? LinkedIn is a really great tool and it's a really great resource to find all those questions. You can also Google them, learn more about what they do on the side. And so if they are in the tech world, do they have specific clients that they work with that they've talked about or written about in a blog post online? Really just get to know them a little bit more so that you have an arsenal of facts and information to go off of in the conversation. You never want to blindly go into a conversation and just sit there and say, tell me everything and anything. You want to make sure that you have really thought out questions and the conversation is a conversation and not necessarily just you sitting there while the person you're trying to network with is telling you everything and not really knowing what you are wanting out of it. So just being really clear about what you want out of the conversation, doing your research, and being really strategic.
Excellent. Thank you, Abby. Mark.
Well, I think Abby covered a lot of the things that I was going to suggest. I'll say a couple of things regarding, to me, there's different types of networking, and there could be formal opportunities for you to reach out and ask for an informational interview, for example, of an alum or somebody that you may have met through a third party that's in an industry that you're interested in. And as Abby said, if you're going to do that, then you really want to research that person or that person's company or institution so that you're informed when you can carry on an intelligent conversation. I would say, but there are also opportunities that you never know when you might bump into somebody in a public place, and you might have something in common. It could be the local sports team. It could be a book that you're both reading, but somehow there'll be that connection. And if you're curious about people and you start asking them questions about what they do and what they're interested in, you never know where that might lead. So I think having that, at Nike we call it be a sponge, having that curiosity about the world around you and the people that you might meet every day. And then and when you're open that way, I think people sense that. And when you do get that opportunity, try to be at your most energetic self. Some people are naturally extroverted. Some people are more introverted. And I understand that that you can't change your personality. You definitely want to be yourself. But at the same time, I think people appreciate it when you're looking them in the eye, that they get a sense that you're actually excited and interested to be there and engaged in that conversation. And people love telling their story. So practice, interviewing people, questioning people. Practice with your friends, practice with your dog. I don't know, but if that's not that doesn't come natural to you, then I would really suggest that you put yourself out there and try to make yourself take yourself out of the comfort zone so that you can seem more engaging and more energetic to both the people that you may just meet accidentally, but probably more importantly, any kind of informational interview or a formal interview that you may get in your kind of field of expertise or area of interest.
Great, thanks, Mark. So Linda, could I ask you for maybe one or two tips before I move on to Michael?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are really covered. I love, I think knowing that everyday interactions can be really significant. I love the fact that Michael has such a variety of programming in DC, and that just because something is social doesn't necessarily mean that there might not be other opportunities to connect with people personally. And I really appreciate what Mark said about being curious. That's so important, to be curious. And it kind of takes the pressure off of you when you're connecting with people if you're just naturally asking them questions, getting to know them, just like making a friend. That's what you're doing when you're doing that. And then Abby's comments about research is very critical. That's a lot of the comments I get from people are they expect the other person to lead it. And I have these guides that I use for informational interviewing, and I always want people to come prepared with questions, but have it all infused from their LinkedIn profile. So I see you made a transition from this company to this company. What made you make that decision? But always make it look like you've done your homework, and they're going to feel much more engaged. And then the final thing is the importance of follow-up. Sometimes we have these initial contacts. We're worried about bothering them, and so we don't follow up with them. But the other piece of feedback I get from friends is that, well, whatever happened to them? I met with them. They've now invested in you, and they care about how you're doing. So, and I know it comes from a place I don't want to bother them, but when you're talking with them saying, can I keep you posted on my progress or what I'm doing? And I think they really appreciate that. So don't be afraid to follow up and stay in contact, and always send your thank you note.
Great, thanks, Linda. And last but not least, Michael, any final tips on about networking effectiveness?
You really gave me the hardest part here. Everyone said everything that I think I wanted to say. It was really, it's really good. There's a lot of networking here in DC. It happens all the time, and so I think that just a couple of things. I really like the idea of you're making a friend. I think that's 100% true. And then I think the follow-up is really important too. If you meet DC Duck at a bar that you were, going to for a watch party or whatever, and you get their contact info, send them a note sometime in the next week and say, it was really great to meet you. I enjoyed talking about X. you know, got to be a little bit specific so they remember who you are, hopefully, and then say, I'd love to get together with you again sometime, or I'd like to keep you updated of what's going on, or just more open. You can just, I hope to see you again at the next duck meeting or the next duck game, whatever it is you're looking for at that point. I think it is really important to be specific and do your research, but I think it's also important to just kind of be flexible and let these connections happen if they do, and if they don't, just don't worry about it. You don't need to connect with every single Duck alum. You just need to connect with a few of them that are appropriate in your geographical area or in your career field or whatever. So don't stress out about it too much. And then I guess if you're nervous at an actual event, so you don't know kind of what to do, that's fine. Remember, most everybody there is probably a little bit nervous. And so some tips that I picked up over time, you just want to kind of get the conversation rolling. So look around, and if you find somebody that's kind of hanging out by themselves, that's a good person to go to. Don't try to jump into a big group of 5 people that are already talking. If they're all friends and they're talking about inside jokes and stuff, your presence is not going to be as meaningful, and it may actually be distracting to those people. So find somebody or a group of 2 people that are kind of off to the side and looking around, because those are the people that are waiting to be engaged. And it doesn't matter if you don't end up having a lasting connection with that person, because that can just be your first connection of the night, and that will lead you to the next one. So don't feel like you have to just jump right into it immediately with a big, huge joke or a mind-boggling magic performance or something. You don't have to be memorable right then. Start off slow, talk to somebody, get a little bit more comfortable, have a sip of beer, and then walk around and start talking to other people. And then I also have people who have talked to me about like disengaging from the conversation. Say you've gotten everything out of the person that you wanted to, or you feel awkward. Well, remember, you're there. If you're there for a networking event or if it's a big mingle event, well, then people are going to be moving in and out of conversations all the time. So just thank the person and say, I'm going to go talk to somebody else now. They're not going to be upset about that. They understand why you're there. They are there for the same reasons. So just feel comfortable beginning and ending those conversations, and don't worry about making any mistakes, because everyone's kind of all in it together at that point.
Fantastic advice from all of you. Thank you so much. I am so glad we're recording this, because so many more people will be able to benefit from your advice, so thank you so much. So at this point, let me transition this discussion a little bit and turn it over to Linda specifically, because in addition to helping to illustrate that we have this amazing community of ducks, family of ducks, who are receptive, eager, and supportive, and in many ways cheerleaders for the upcoming graduates, we also want to make sure that our new grads and recent grads know that there are specific resources for you to support you in this transition. And so I'd like to turn it over to Linda for a few minutes to highlight some of those resources that every new and recent grad should be aware of. So Linda.
Great, thank you. This is going to be a very brief overview, and so I want you to know that there's a lot more resources available, but I want to just point a few things out for you as you're getting ready to graduate or as a recent graduate yourself. So the first thing that I think is really important, that this is great that we've had this for since 2008, is you have free resources for an entire year post-graduation, a whole year. So I really encourage you to utilize those resources. They'll come in a variety of different forms. One of them is the Duck Connect, which is on the Career Center webpage. There's all kinds of job posting and resources. It's a very long list of resources, from how do you write a resume, cover letter, how do you do informational interviews, interviewing. So know that that is there. It's always there. If you're 2 in the morning getting ready for an interview the next day, it's there for you then. So use the Duck Connect, and actually that's available to you forever as an alum. That's not just that first year. So that is free to you. That is for a lifetime. Appointments can be very helpful to people. We like to try to create opportunities for a variety of learning styles, and some people really want that one-on-one time. So if you're in Portland, you can come and meet with me face-to-face if you prefer that. But I also do a lot of phone and video, whether it's Google Hangout or it's Skype. I'm happy to do those appointments. You can also do it with career counselors in the Eugene Career Center as well. So again, that's free for a whole year, and then every alum post that year gets 1 free additional appointment, and then past that, there's some very affordable packages that you can purchase, which I've had people purchase them when they're getting ready to go to medical school, and I prep them several sessions on interviewing for those medical application processes. Maybe I looked at their personal statement. So it doesn't just have to be about looking for a job. Maybe in a few years you're transitioning to graduate school and you need some assistance with that as well. We also, one of our more successful programs is our job search groups. We do those 3 times a year, and we meet in person. I have a conference room. It's a small cohort of 8 people, and by the end of that, 50% of the people have a job by the end. So we go through 6 sessions, and it's the nuts and bolts of finding a job, and people find that very helpful. It's supportive. I bring in a lot of alumni to help reinforce a lot of my messages, so only the messages I want them to know. But anyway, it's very helpful for them, and we find a lot of success. We also do a virtual one in the summer, so for all of you that are not in Portland but want to participate, we'll have one in July that we will be doing virtually. So we did that for the first time last year, and in fact, it's funny, I just met with, for coffee, somebody that was on that virtual job search group last year. She now is a recruiting coordinator for a firm, and we were connecting over that. So it's always great to see those successes. I also want to point out, we mentioned LinkedIn, but there's a couple things on LinkedIn that I think are really important. There's a lot of University of Oregon groups, but it's really important that you join the official one, because that's fully vetted by faculty. It's only faculty, staff, alumni, and students. So it's a very robust group. A lot of people post jobs on there, but it's very UofO specific. You'll notice when you go on LinkedIn, there's a lot of different kinds of groups, which can be very confusing. But the official University of Oregon, which we may get to here, but it's got a green square and a yellow circle in it. But that's a great way where you can message people and connect with people, whatever region you're looking at. And then the other thing that I wanted to share is there's also you can search alumni, whatever, maybe you're in Nebraska and we don't have a chapter, but always just plug in University of Oregon and a zip code, you will always find a deck. So LinkedIn really is your friend. And Michael said earlier, which I have noticed a lot, the farther you get away from Eugene, the more people want to connect. So don't be afraid to reach out to people no matter where you are, whether there's a chapter or not. People really do want to connect with you. And then the other thing I wanted to mention that in Portland here, we have our own signature career events. So in the fall, we have something called Get Connected, where we bring employers and mentors here to help launch people in their job search. Any alumni can come, but we have a lot of different components, and we typically have a keynote that's talking about networking. In the winter, we have something called the Women's Roundtable, where we either bring an outstanding speaker talking about women's issues, or we bring leaders that are women in the Portland area to talk about their career paths and really inspire people. It's open to everyone, but it is a focus on women. And then in the spring, last week, we had career conversations, and the theme was desks and tasks. So we had 100 people here, and we had, hardware, software, startup established, and it was a great way to just learn from these leaders that are desks and then have an opportunity for people to connect. So those are some of the resources that are available to you in addition to what's available on the Deck Career Network.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Linda. I guess as we start nearing the end of this particular part of our program, because all of you should remember that once we hit the 5 o'clock time frame, we go from this webinar format to actually more one-on-one interactions via a sort of a web chat platform. Hopefully all of you have registered. If you have not registered, no worries. Once this program ends, the website for that event will pop up right away. You can actually register real time and then be able to join in on the activity, which is one-on-one web chats with both the options of connecting with our speakers, but also connecting with other recent grads and soon-to-be grads that are on this program right now. So again, hopefully you will all stay. The last thing I wanted to ask Linda to do before I turn it over to Camille, who's been watching out for questions, but also formulating some for our panelists. So before I do that, I'd love Linda to share some tips on job search and sort of new experience success tips. We all know that, as Abby mentioned, some people are lucky enough to find a job that they're able to stick with for at least a few years, but it's actually not uncommon for people to not realize what they want or don't want until they're actually in a position, whether that's a full-time job internship, temp position. So the reality of having to start something new is not just for the new grads, but it's also something that oftentimes will happen quite a few times within the first 3, 5, 7 years of school. So with that, Linda, can you talk us through some of those tips people should have in mind to set themselves up for success within a job, within anything new that they're participating in?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I have a little list here of kind of how to be successful in the first 90 days, and I'm sure Michael, Mark, and Abby could also contribute to this. But these are just some bullets to keep in mind that I've noticed can be helpful for people when they're starting on the job. So remembering that we should be building relationships both vertically and horizontally. Sometimes we feel safer building relationships with people that are our peers, but know that we need to meet people going, that are hierarchical as well. So be focused on meeting relationships. If they're having events, make sure you show up at everything. Say yes a lot in those first 90 days because you're making such an important first impression. Listen more than you speak. I think when we're a recent grad, we want to show that we're very knowledgeable, that we have a lot to share, that we want to contribute. But know that listening actually makes a stronger impression than speaking a lot. So absorb that information, utilize that information, and then speak when it's appropriate. But look for those opportunities to really pay attention. I like to call it a listening tour when you first start. Check your work often. We're in a pattern of texting and doing things really quickly. It's really important that you slow down. I was very guilty of this when I graduated back in '89. I worked for a law firm, and I can't tell you how many memos came back with red all over them. So I always say, read it out loud 3 times before you send it. Or many of us have those dreaded reply alls that we really wish we hadn't hit reply all or forward it to the wrong person. So just slow down a little bit, check your work, and you'll be happy. Invest your time on the job. I know it's important for work-life balance right now, and we want to keep things in check, but know that these first 90 days, it might be really important for you to spend extra time in your job to make that good impression. Things hopefully will calm down a little bit, but those first 90 days, again, you want to show that you're a hard worker, that you want to learn, and that you invest your time wisely. Seek out your supervisor and the best way to communicate. Some people like to communicate via email, some people face-to-face, some people on the phone, but ask the question. Don't assume. Maybe there's a variety of ways, but make sure that you know how your supervisor wants to communicate with you. You're also probably going to get a little overwhelmed, so learning how to prioritize, and it's okay to go back to your boss and say, this is, I'm not going to make this deadline, but I can make it by this time. What do you want me to focus on today? And then finally, create a document of early wins. One of the things that I think is important when you get to review time, it's hard to remember everything that you've accomplished. So keep a running document of things that you've accomplished that are measurable and where you've added value, and that tool will come in handy later on down the road when you're having to evaluate yourself and share with your supervisor what it is that you need to do. And I think just doing a few of these tips will help make those 90 days a little bit smoother.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. Gosh, in so many ways, these are tips for success at work, but also success with people that you're around, whether it's a volunteer or social type of a setting. Your brand is of the greatest value to you, and the more that you know how you can shape it, the more that you actually have success in your own control. So again, thank you so much for those tips. So right now, I'd like to turn it over to Camille, who may have questions for individual panelists or some questions for each of the panelists to answer.
Yeah, great. Thank you, James. So the first question is open to all panelists, and it's really asking you as a recent grad, if you're lacking in professional experience, how can you showcase some of your extra skills or extra experience, such as study abroad or traveling or extracurricular activities that you've participated in? Can you speak to that and how you can showcase it in a way that really translates to a job? Let's go ahead and start with Linda.
All right. Those are all really important experiences, and it doesn't matter if it's paid work or unpaid work, it's an experience. So, for instance, if someone is really interested in international business and they studied abroad, I would have them create that as part of one of their experiences in their resume. And sometimes people hide their study abroad, or like they put it under their education, but really feature it and talk about your cross-cultural experiences and maybe some of the coursework that you took to really showcase those opportunities. Extracurricular, people love leadership experiences. Do the same thing that if you were president or vice president, the organization, and then create bullet points just like you would a job. Again, you're showcasing your skill set, what you can accomplish. You represent it the same way. It's very valuable to employers. So don't hide that. Really showcase it.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, going off on that,
Abby.
actually. So a lot, like I previously said, a lot of my experience had to do with student organizations. So it wasn't even necessarily paid positions or internships that I showcased during my interviews or while I was networking. A lot of it was the experiences that I had, and very much to Linda's point, if you can speak to what you learned from those experiences, whether it was, you know, leading meetings with your group or in your group projects, or if it was putting together a small speaking opportunity for someone to speak to a student organization that you're involved with on campus, those are all leadership skills, and they can translate very well as someone who can be really organized and who's willing to take charge and has the capacity to oversee a lot of moving pieces. And so I think it's just, it's looking at your experiences and seeing what translatable skills you can bring into the workforce. That's usually the best way to go about those types of experiences if you don't have a paid internship, or if you're even an unpaid internship, for that matter.
Thank you, Abby.
And Abby, actually, this next question is for you directly. Can you share some of the specifics on how you got involved with the chapter, and maybe what was the first event you went to? What did it look like, and how did you approach really engaging the chapter?
Yeah, so the first thing I did was purchase my alumni membership upon graduating. And if you are a recent alumni and haven't done that, you should, because it comes in handy. So when I moved out here, I, like I previously stated, signed up for the Alumni Association, specifically within the San Francisco chapter, followed them on all their social channels, to Linda's point earlier, followed the Alumni Association group on LinkedIn, and also followed the Bay Area chapter. And then from there, I reached out to the Alumni Association directly because I worked under the Student Alumni Association on who to get connected with and becoming involved, and whether that was volunteering or if there was a position with an easy lift on the Bay Area chapter board that I could help out with. I was open to it all. And so again, going back to my point previously on during this webinar, was to be open-minded and just kind of try anything and everything. I put myself out there, and the first event that I actually went to was a freshman send-off. So I was at the send-off this past summer, helping out volunteering, setting up for the event, but then also being there as a resource for parents and for incoming freshmen to ask questions about what life is like in Eugene coming from California, or what major I was involved in, what student organizations I was involved in, anything and everything from what do I bring to my dorm room. And so just being involved in ways that you know you can be helpful in, for instance, the freshman send-off, because I was a recent grad, is really helpful, and it makes you feel a part of the chapter automatically, and you're helping other ducks along the way, whether it's the chapter or it's incoming ducks. It's, again, paying it forward. So that was probably the easiest way that I was able to get involved with the chapter, and then from there, just helping out with other volunteer opportunities, and then being willing to give my time wherever I could to help with our signature events or our watch parties. And also just reaching out to other ducks that were in my area. So like I said, San Francisco is a hotbed for recent grads because it is a transplant city. And so I had a lot of classmates that lived in the area, and what can be hard is trying to latch on to a group of friends that you knew back in Eugene, and then continuing that friendship here in San Francisco, or here in a city that isn't Eugene. And so inviting them to chapter events, or asking them if they want to volunteer, or just asking them if they want to go to a watch party to one of the Alumni Association chapter events is always really easy too.
Great, thank you. Do we have time for one more, or
I think we should shift over to our virtual networking portion so that our viewers and our speakers can have a chance to talk with each other individually. But I do want to thank you for some of those wonderful additional probing questions. So at this point, I do want to say thank you so much to our volunteer alumni, Abby, Mark, and also Michael. And also our dual duty, Linda, who's both the alum but also a colleague and a staff person with the alumni, with the Career Center doing alumni career services in Portland and beyond. And with that, a final comment, as a number of people have brought up, Abby, Mark, and also Michael, for those of you who are just about to graduate, most of you do have that 1-year membership in the Alumni Association that you purchased, that you obtained when you purchased your graduation pack. You're also able to purchase those a la carte, and before actual graduation, I think the discounted price is something ridiculously small, like $15, that you'll easily earn back with discounts across the board, Duck Store, Columbia Employee Store shopping, Key Employee Store shopping. But what I do also want to emphasize is for recent grads, you're still within the 4 years of discounted membership prices. So versus the typical $55 annual membership, it's only $35, and the lifetime membership package is still the most amazing deal where it's 50% off. $750 is normal, but it's only $375 for you. So again, it may sound like a bit of money, and I know it is, especially when you're just about to graduate. But when you think of your lifetime being a duck and how many doors that being a member of the Alumni Association will keep open for you, we hope you'll consider investing in that and being with us as we continue to work together to make the U of O stronger and to maintain strong relationships between alumni and the University of Oregon. So last but not least, for those of you who are members of the Alumni Association, we're going to look over the attendance list, and you will receive an email from us in probably the coming days, because as a thank you for being a member and also participating in this event, we are arranging with Vistaprint, the business card printers, the ability for you to order business cards that specifically align yourself with the Alumni Association, and there will also be a specific discount for you as well too. So watch for that in your email in the coming months. Coming days. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are about to graduate in 3 weeks, we can't be more excited for you. Please do realize that we are all resources for you. Those of us on campus, those of us who work in some capacity with the U of O, and of course the entire community of 190,000 alumni in the U.S. and well beyond. So with that, I will close this portion of the webinar. Once you see this event close, you should see automatically pop open the portal through which you will use to participate in the web chat portion of this program, where you'll be able to have one-on-one text message web chats with our speakers as well as each other. So congratulations on graduation. Congratulations for those of you who have been, who are recent grads who have graduated in the recent past. And hopefully we'll have a chance to connect with you individually using that Brazen virtual networking platform. So thank you all so much, and see you all on the text side. Talk to you all soon.